Okay, so in the previous few sessions, we have got a good understanding of the domain mode of Jboss. What is domain controller? What is master, slave? What are the different configuration files? And how we define the heap size at the master level or at the slave level for individual servers? What are the server groups, host and process controllers, different kind of profiles, socket binding groups, right? So now this session is a conclusion of all, which will explain you the complete end-to-end flow of the configurations. Okay, so whenever we start the master node or whenever we start the slave nodes, okay, what are the processes that has been initiated in sequence, okay, and how the configurations are loaded. Okay, so this will give a complete deep understanding from the JBoss architecture perspectives, okay, which will help you to understand end-to-end flow, or you can say end-to-end internal architecture of your JBoss. Okay, so let us first start with the master startup. Okay, so when we start the master and when we start the slaves, okay, so there are a different sequence of steps that has been loaded in your configurations. There are different kind of a configuration files that is loaded when we start the master and slave. So let us start with the master first. So when we start the master, okay, so we execute the domain.sh script, right, which we have seen in the previous sessions, and this is a command where we start the master, okay, using the master host file, right? And then when we execute the domain.sh, okay, the very first thing, it read the domain.conf file, okay, of the master node. Okay, in the master node we have a domain.conf file. That file is read by your domain.sh script. When you start, the very first thing after that, it will start the process controller. This is the first process that is going to be started, process controller, right? Because what we have learned about the process controller, it is a child process which monitor and take care of your host controllers, and whenever your host controller is down, it automatically start that. And even when we are going for graceful startup, okay, your process controller always start your host controllers. Okay, so after reading the domain.conf file, the very first thing, process controller server will be startup. After that, process controller will going to start your host controller, right? Because host process controller always take care of the host controller processes, correct? And when we start the host controller, it is going to read your host hyphen master file. Okay, this file name could be different according to your customizations. Maybe you have defined it as a host hyphen primary.xml, which is the default one. Okay, so in our case, it is a host hyphen master.xml. It depends how you rename your file. Right. So your host controller is going to read this particular master file. Okay. And after reading this master file, it will recognize that, okay, I am a domain controller because we define the domain controller setting in the host hyphen master.xml file. So after that, once it recognize that, okay, I am the domain controller, then it is going to read the domain.xml file, which is a central configuration file. This is a master file which contain all information about your complete domain, which including your master domain, including your slave domain. Okay, then it start the management interface on the default port 9990. Okay, and then your host controller spawns server processes, whatever the servers. If you have servers on the domain controller as well, then your host controller is going to start their server processes. So here we have two servers, okay, on this master node. So your host controller will start these two. Okay, and after that, your domain controller is going to wait for slave connections, right? Whenever you are going to start your slave nodes, then your slave nodes contact your domain controller, right, for in the domain mode. So after that, your domain controller is going to wait for the slave connections. Okay, and then process controller continuously monitor your host controllers. If it is crash, it automatically restart. Okay, so this is the very critical process to understand. And if you have a complete understanding of this process, okay, then you can say you have a good understanding of the internal architecture of your Jboss. And let me quickly rephrase that. Domain.sh is the main script that we use to start your domain controller in the domain mode. First, it read the domain.conf file, and then it start the process controller. Okay, and this process controller heap size is defined in this domain.conf file. And then your process controller is going to start your host controller, and this host controller heap size is again defined in the same domain.conf file. And after that, when we start the host controller, it is going to read the corresponding host file, which is host-master.xml in our case. Then it recognizes that it is a domain controller. And once it is recognized that I am a domain controller, it read the domain.xml file, which is the main central configuration file. Then it start the management interface on port 9990, which is the default one. You can change it in the configuration file if required. And then your host controller start the server processes. If you have some servers or server groups in your domain controller host as well, okay, then it is going to start your servers. If it is not, if there is no servers in the domain controller, then this will be skipped because there is no servers. Then it is wait for the slave connection. So whenever you start the slaves will contact this particular domain controller. And after that, your process controller will continuously monitor your host controller. And if it is crashed or any time, okay, it is going to automatically restart. So this is the end-to-end process of your master domain controller when you start the domain controller. Now similarly, you have a startup process for the slave. These two are very important to understand for a deep understanding of the JBoss architecture. Right. Now, what is the process of when we start the slave? Simple. Again, we use the same domain.sh when we start the slave controller or the slave nodes. Okay. The only difference is that with this command, we have to specify the slave XML file, slave host file. By default, it comes with like something like host hyphen with some different like secondary XML, or it may be some with different domain conventions. Okay, so in our case, we have renamed that file to host hyphen slave.xml. Okay, again, when you execute this, it is going to read the domain.conf file. And in the domain, in your slave node as well, we have a process controller and host controllers, right? So again, it read and start the controller, process controller first. And when process controller is started, okay, it start your host controller. And when you start the host controller, it read the same host hyphen slave.xml file, right? And then it see the remote tag in the domain controller. So here the difference come in comparison with the master. So here master recognize that, okay, I am defined as the master. I am going to be a domain controller. So it start the management, which we have seen in the previous slide. But now here we are starting the slave. Okay, so slave look for the remote tab. Okay, in the domain controller section, we have a domain controller section which we have seen. Okay, so inside domain controller, it look for the remote, and then it identify that, okay, I am the slave because there is a master which is defined in your XML file, slave file. So it reads that configuration and it try to connect with the master node. Okay, and when it try to contact the master node, it authenticate with the help of credentials which we define in the host hyphen slave file, username and password, management username and password file, passwords, right? And once it is authenticated, the important step here is it download the domain.xml file from the master node, right? So that means the domain.xml file of your master node is the master file, okay, which is going to be downloaded in each and every slave node. Okay, so that means domain.xml file you will see in the your slave node as well, but that will not be of any use, because for a centralized control of the entire domain from a single location, there has to be only one main configuration file. Okay, and that is to be the master file, master node file. So it will download the domain.xml file from the master node and it will keep in the memory. Okay, and then it is going to start the host controller. Host controller is going to start your servers. Okay, whatever the servers you have in the different server group in that particular slave host. Okay, your host controller is going to start your servers, and again the process controller monitor the host controller, and if it is crash, it is restarted. Okay, so the difference in terms of master and slave comes here, right? So after this one, your master recognize that, okay, I am defined as the domain controller, so I am going to start the management console. And in the slave node, it identify the remote tag where we have the your master details are defined. So it is going to connect with the master. It is going to authenticate. It is going to download the domain.xml file from the master node. Okay, and then it is going to look for the different configurations, and based on that, it is your host controller is going to start your server, whatever the servers you have defined in the slave nodes. And then continuously process controller is going to monitor your host controller, and if it is crashed, it automatically restart. So these two are very critical, what we have seen here for the master startup and for the slave startup, right? Now, let us look in terms of the configurations, how the configurations are loaded. When the servers are going to be started, which configuration file is loaded, or what are the configuration that has been loaded in sequence. Okay, so this will give you a complete clarity when you specifically you are working on the configurations. What all are the configurations that need to be updated, like the socket groups or the socket offsets, JVM heap size, some other parameters need to be updated. So where exactly we need that? Because in your environment, you may have a multiple server groups, and each and server groups can have using the different profiles. It is possible that you have a multiple server groups, and the multiple other server different server groups are using the different profiles. So many times engineer get confused about, okay, where exactly we need to change the configurations, which profile it is using, and then where we need to change the configuration. So this confusion will get clear after this particular slides. Okay, so